Good Wednesday morning of the second week. This is a powerful gospel. St. Matthew must have been really dealing with the early church with the struggle, the internal struggles among the disciples. They're looking for power. Matthew's early gospel. And it could very well be what they wanted was the restoration, in a way, of not only the Judaic kingdom, but in a sense, a form of governance and a form of life that was similar to the Romans. That's what I think, because they get it wrong all the time. They were people in search of power. Well, I'll read it to you. See? Jesus, and this is a formulaic. The first part of this in Matthew is formulaic. It reads that way, and I'm sure it's what it is. It was a paragraph. I don't know the right word. There's a word they use in biblical studies that would be common. Everyone would know this. Jesus was going up to Jerusalem, and that's always refers to the Passion when he says up to Jerusalem. He took the 12 disciples aside by themselves, and he said to them, and see, this is why you know it's a Passion account. Behold, we are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be handed over to the chief priests and scribes, and they will condemn him to death, and hand him over to the Gentiles to be mocked and scourged and crucified. And he will be raised on the third day. That's formulaic. See? Did our Lord actually, I don't know if he said it or not. It's the heart and soul of the gospel. See, it's a proclamation of the core of the gospel. See? Now you get the contradiction. That's the truth, which you just heard. The truth of the gospel. See? Christ crucified. What's the counter to that? The love of power. See? The opposite of self-sacrifice is the wielding of power. Watch what I say. Then the mother of the sons of Zebedee approached Jesus with her sons and did him homage, wishing to ask him for something. And he said to her, "What do you wish?" She answered, "Command that these two sons of mine sit, one at your right and the other at your left, in your kingdom." The power, see? She said, "You don't know what you're asking for. Can you drink the chalice I'm going to drink?" They said, "We can." He replied, "Yeah, my chalice you will indeed drink, but to sit at my right and my left, not mine to give, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared by my Father." That's an interesting line about the right and the left, when he says, "My chalice you will drink." Okay, and it is not mine to give, okay? It's interesting because John lives to be an old man. He does not get crucified or gets martyred, but his brother does. See? John's crucifixion, in a sense, his sacrifice was to live to be an old man and to be part of it, to suffer the loss of his friends, his family, his friends, whatever. Okay? Different kind of cross. Yeah. Now, of course, when the 10 heard this, they became indignant at the two brothers. But Jesus summoned them and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and the great ones make their authority over them felt. But it shall not be so among you. Rather, whoever wishes to be great among you shall be your servant. Whoever wishes to be first among you shall be your slave. Just so the Son of Man didn't come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." See, that's also formulaic. You get the point. He counters the ambitions. You know, when I think of servant, okay, my father was a servant. He was a waiter in a restaurant. I told you this story. I know I did, because it's one of my favorite stories of my father, okay, among many. But this one, I think I was a deacon at the time. It was over 50 years ago, 50 plus years ago, 55, 56 years ago. And I was in New Haven for whatever reasons. And I went to the Tivoli where my father was away, this swanky-ass restaurant, okay? And number one in New England by AAA, okay, standards. Anyway, I went there and I sat at the table. It was a small table. And my dad waited on me. And I said to him, "Pop, why don't you sit down?" He says, "I'm a waiter. I stand at the table." I think of that when I say Mass. Grant you, I sit during the readings, but I stand at the table. It's not power. It's the standing of a waiter in a restaurant. It's a servant. And I think it's crucial in the life of the faith to recognize in the life of the church, from the Pope down, we're servants. The one who probably instantiated that the best in my time in 100 years, I think, was John the 23rd, because he described himself as Servus Servandi Dei, the servant of the servants. Servus Servandi Dei, the servant of those who are doing the serving. So it would be the waiter, in a way the busboy who looks out for the waiter, who serves the waiter, the busboy who serves the waiter, not the power broker. I take that very seriously, because I think in many ways the Romanization of the church in the 5th century perverted that image and that model, because the church became part of the imperium, and that is certainly the superstructure, the emperor, and the church became in many ways that, up into our own times. The Pope and the bishops were more than religious leaders. They were men of enormous power. And their dress and their, meaning the vestments, etc., the position they played, certainly reflected not that of a servant standing at the table, but a power broker sitting at the table. I think that changed with Vatican II, I think because of John the 23rd. Servus Servandi Dei. And the clergy today, I think, in their education and their formation in the seminaries, is that of servant leadership, servant preparation. I don't see that arrogance that existed, let's say, 60 or 70 years ago. Well, I'll show you an example, okay? Just for the 2 cents. But in my father's restaurant, the Tivoli, where he worked, they must have averaged, he told me at one time, they averaged 125 priests a week ate there. All right? They never picked up the tab. Somebody always paid the tab for them. They ate for nothing. The restaurant didn't give it to them for nothing. Somebody always picked up the tab. You know, 125 guys a week came in there. You had to know the Tivoli. The Tivoli was ranked by AAA as the #1 restaurant in New England. It's swanky. To talk about swanky. Yeah. You had to know it. These guys were not eating at Burger Chef. They were eating lobster, broiled lobster, and they didn't have to pay for it. Somebody else paid for it. There's something really wrong in that picture. I'm glad it's over. I'm glad it's over. When I came here to St. Louis, I really saw a difference here, for whatever it's worth here. That wasn't the mindset here. The priesthood was not put on a pedestal. You had to earn it. I remember Lou Camario said to me, God rest him, after I was here a couple of years, he said to me, you're learning. He said, you're learning how to do what? How to be a servant. You're learning. I remember the first time when the pastor, Joe Cronin at the time, it was the first day I was here, said, come on, we'll go out to dinner tonight. I just got here. First full day. Okay. What am I thinking? Tivoli. Where do we end up? I don't know, some joint. Okay. Family restaurant. Fine. Nothing. The way I said, kids flying off the wall. And I knew this was different. Besides, everyone knew him. They said, hi, Father, hi this, hi that. We were not in clerical clothes. They all knew him. Guess who paid the tab? He did. And I knew that was right. I knew that was right. This was so much healthier than in New England. Here you had to make your bones, as the Italians say. You had to prove yourself. And you paid your own way. Nobody owed you a free dinner. You're here to serve, not to be served. I think the church is much better off today than it was 60 years ago, when the priesthood frankly, was a racket.